Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to categorically state that I support the diversification of the tourism products. In fact, during my tenure as Minister of Tourism, I developed a mantra where I said the benefits of tourism must accrue to as many people as possible. And that was in keeping with the idea of causing the tourism industry to benefit people in their pocketbooks. Basically, a philosophical approach to the tourism industry. And in that regard, we worked with the EU to develop the Nature Heritage Tourism Project, which in effect was a concept that brought tourism to different countries, different parts of the country. And by the time I'm finished with my presentation, Mr. Speaker, I will list to you the interventions of the Nature Heritage Tourism Program and how it enhanced the tourism sector and diversified the tourism sector. But I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that in the year 2008, the EU provided a grant of $13 million to the then government for a successor program to the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Project in 2008. And the output of that project was a wooden building in Lakai, a green building in Lakai, and a Land Rover that was parked in that area for that time. And if you remember, Mr. Speaker, because you live in that area, you will see that green building is still there, and it's used as an office for somebody. I can't remember who it is, but that was the outcome of a $13 million loan from the EU, and the remainder went to foreign consultants. But that was intended, Mr. Speaker, to complete or to continue the Nature Heritage Tourism Program that was started by the government and ended in 2006, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, from April the 7th, 2007, this government has been speaking about a village tourism project. And I will quote to you directly, Mr. Speaker, the words of this government as it relates to village tourism. And you'll agree with me that this is just another colossal bluff because elections are very near. On April the 8th, 2007, here's what the then Minister of Tourism said. The Ministry of Tourism is taking the island's tourism industry one step further with the introduction of the Village Tourism Program. The program in Ansari, the same Ansari you heard this morning, organized by the Basic Needs Trust Fund and the Ansari Seafood Vendors Association. That was on April 8, 2007. He went further to say, the Village Tourism Program is also about giving the tourists an opportunity to develop a relationship with the communities. And I quote, all too often, we do not practice the art of seduction in St. Lucia. We just get straight to the point, and we put the vendors right up front, and the vendors are trying this hard sell, and the people have yet not developed a relationship with our community, with our island, and therefore they are turned off by it. But the goal of the Village Tourism Program is you are going to own your own restaurants. The goal is that you will own a small hotel, maybe 5, 10, 20 rooms, with its own liquor restaurant downstairs. That was on April the 18th, 2007. That was the goal of the Village Tourism Program. On April the 18th, 2007. 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. During that period, the EU gave a grant of $13 million to continue the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program that had been started. And as I continue, I will tell you what the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program was about and what it did to the tourism industry in St. Lucia. Come October the 19th, 2017, that is a program that was spoken about in 2007, Village Tourism in 2007, and 2007 to 2011, the government was in power. The successor program for the SLHCA for certain, I want to make it very clear, for the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program, $13 million and EU grant. What happened there was a green building went up in Lakai and a few palm trees were built. That were planted. That was the continuation of the Native Heritage Tourism Program, supposed to have been taken over by the Village Tourism Program. So come October 19th, 2017, Mr. Speaker. So the idea of the Village Tourism Program that we are going to be embarking upon, but village tourism is about how to get more people involved and engaged in this industry. Now from 2007 to 2011, we spoke about that same Village Tourism Program. But in 2017, it is about how to get people involved and engaged in the industry. Mr. Speaker, we go along. In March 2018, the Caribbean Development Fund gave the government a grant of $324,000 to establish the institutional framework and roadmap for village tourism. 2007, nothing happened. 2017, we have a grant in 2018 for village tourism. 2017, 2018, the budget address. The government's policy is to reserve freestyle property developments for St. Lucians to invest in keeping it the village tourism. Budget address, 2017, 2018. We'll create and capitalize on the concept of village tourism. 8 fishing villages will be transformed into unique tourism villages based on the attributes and strengths. That was in the budget address of 2017 to 2018. 2018 to 2019, the budget address again. The village tourism project is both an investment in infrastructure and people. The project has 2 phases. Phase 1 is the consultancy to facilitate the establishment of a village tourism entity. So it comes now from 2017 2007, when it was creating and capitalizing to now a consultancy to facilitate the establishment of a village tourism entity. Phase 2 consists of the establishment of the Village Tourism Inc. I guess that's incorporation. An organization established to act like a franchise to promote the offering of community tourism products and attractions that build on the natural culture and human capital. Moreover, it will provide support to strengthen the operations of small businesses. That's the same village tourism that he spoke about in 2007. Grant funding from the Caribbean Development Fund in the amount of $24,000 has been secured to finance technical assistance on the establishment of the institutional framework for the preparation of a roadmap and business plan for village tourism. That is the budget address of 2018 to 2019. Budget address 2019 to 2020. In addition, the preparatory legislation and regulatory framework for village tourism is well advanced, and Groceries and Ancillary and Soufre are to be the first beneficiaries of this exciting new tourism product. The global brand of this initiative will be Village Tourism. And at that point, we were told that the economic targets of the tourism sector strategy are to be increased GDP contribution to 1.9 billion by 2022 and attract investments of 3.5 billion by 2022. Now, COVID was in March 2021. So between that time, between that time and now, if we are supposed to attract $3.5 billion of tourism investment, we ought at least to have 1 billion of tourism, at least, of tourism investment by pre-COVID times. Mr. Speaker, I ask you to tell me, where are these investments apart from a horse racing track? In 2020 to 2021, in the budget address, here's what is said about village tourism. Therefore, going forward, the approach to tourism development will be one which will be aligned with our medium-term development strategy. Diversify our product offerings for development of ecotourism and implementation of the village tourism concept. In 2021, it's still a concept. Funding for the village tourism initiative has been secured under the OECS Tourism Competitiveness Project. So that's another funding source at that time. That is in the 2021 budget. Now it is the CDF. I don't know what happened, whether we had secured funding from the OECS Tourism Project. I do not know. I'm left to be guided. Government has decided to establish a state-owned company called Village Tourism Inc., which will oversee the implementation of the village tourism concept and improve tourism investment facilitation. So that is basically a little different to the Tourism Inc. that we spoke about earlier in the concept of village tourism. So, Mr. Speaker, village tourism continues. Travel Agent Magazine, February the 1st, 2018, the Minister of Tourism. We have a very exciting program that we are about to launch. That's February the 1st, 2018. We have a very exciting program that we are about to launch, called the Village Tourism. We came out and we signed an agreement with the donor agency for a grant loan. I don't know if it's a grant and a loan or grant loan. I don't know what's the meaning of grant loan. But I'll be corrected and say probably he meant a grant and a loan. It says a grant loan of $3 million, and this program seeks to turn our fish villages, a lot of them, like you saw, Soufre example. Then, Mr. Speaker, on April the 7th, the Minister for the Tourism, Village Tourism will give every St. Lucian who is interested the opportunity to establish businesses and participate in our tourism industry as a Minister for Tourism. May 20th, 2019, you will have heard both Prime Minister Alan Shastney and I announce the launching of a village tourism in Grosile, Antler, and Soufrière during this year's budget. And they go and speak about all what the village tourism will do. May 24th, 2019, Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism recently announced a village tourism project to be undertaken in the communities of Grosile, Antler, and Soufrière. Under the village tourism project, each village will have its own theme, such as wellness, art, craft, and local traditions. August 8, 2019, the government of St. Lucia has announced several planned tourism projects. These projects include nationwide rehabilitation project, new properties to be constructed, and a village tourism initiative. June 4th, 2019, when they came to the House with the bill to tax the small properties, etc., he spoke again about village tourism. But, Mr. Speaker, I want you to compare that with what happened under the Nature Heritage Tourism Program, which in effect was similar, or is a similar concept to village tourism, Mr. Speaker. And I want you to understand, while this government has wasted time and effort, instead of continuing a program that they found that was working, where the EU had given them a grant of $13 million grant to continue that project, they cast it aside, Mr. Speaker. But I want you to listen when I tell you what the St. Lucia Nature Heritage Tourism Program did under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Between 1998 and 2005, numerous sites, attractions, and tour products were supported by concessional funding, technical assistance, and exposure to the market. And I'll list to you, Mr. Speaker, the sites and the attractions that were supported by the Nature Heritage Tourism Program. Adding to that, Mr. Speaker, because of the diversification of tourism project, we got the Sky Rights project in Babonneau, where there were negotiations between the Ministry of Tourism, and the EU, and the Development Control Authority, and the Forestry Division to create a sustainable tourism project in Babonneau, the first one of that nature that spoke to the diversification and the sustainability of the tourism industry was that investment in Babonneau, the Sky Rights program, which happened under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. We also, Mr. Speaker, developed the agro-tourism linkages in the Hotel Chocolat in Soufrière, which again was a joint project between the sustainability of agriculture and tourism that caused the Hotel Chocolat in Soufrière, Mr. Speaker, under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I defy this government to give me one tourism project, one hotel, one project, except a horse racing track in Beaufort that was built between the years 2007 and 2011 and 2016 and 2021, before COVID. Here's what the Nature Heritage Tourism Project did. The Latil Falls in Mico, the Trial Waterfall in Soufrière, Manico Gardens in Prale, Fondou Plantation Resort in Soufrière, the Beacon Restaurant in Soufrière, Fond Latisab in Foasso, Babonneau, the Debara Turtle Watch in Debara, Babonneau, the Lucian Country Life in Barata, Upper Union, the Folk Research Center Cultural Heritage Experience, the Castries Heritage Walk, the Marjorie Beach Cafe, the Monsieur Sugar Mill restoration in Choiseul, the Library Tourism Development Plan, feasibility studies for 4 eco-lodges in Library, Soufrière, Canaries, and Edmond Estates, the Dennery Lookout Vending Facility, the Dennery Fish Fry, the Soyer in Vieux-Fort, the Ansere Fish Fry, the building of the Mon Lookout in opposite Government House, all under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, all of them. The Mon Lookout that now is a beacon for taxi drivers and for visitors and for locals to view Castries, under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party as far as tourism is concerned. The Ansere Fish Fry. The Ansere Fish Fry was a project of the Nature Heritage Tourism Program under the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, which is happening today, built by the St. Lucia Labour Party government, Mr. Speaker. We also created the, again, sustainability. We had a program called CAISO 25, celebrating the 5th anniversary of Carnival with the best 25 Calypsonians, a joint thing between the CDF and the Nature Heritage Tourism Program. The Urban Drift, a collection of St. Lucian folk songs with a modern twist by Ronald Bohingson. Again, sustainability of tourism under the St. Lucia Labour Party. We also set up the Heritage Stores as a marketing agency for all heritage tourism sites and attractions. We established Heritage, the Heritage Tourism Association of St. Lucia, an organization of owners and managers of all heritage tourism sites on the island. All of these were established by the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program that provided grants to community groups, soft loans to private enterprises, technical assistance, product development assistance, and marketing support through Heri Tours. That was the work of the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program with grant funding from the EU. That initiative translated into the creation of a whole new subsector in tourism, providing significant economic linkages and financial benefits, employment, and social environmental responsibility action. So instead of this government continuing on that program, where they got the funds from the EU, Mr. Speaker, and that is not all, Mr. Speaker, that is not all that the Heritage Tourism Project did. The Heritage Tourism Project, we created the tourism hostesses and tourism rangers. Many of the tourism rangers are now members of the police force, where the thinking was, Mr. Speaker, and at that time we got support from people in the tourism industry, people who know themselves. We got support from them, Mr. Speaker, for the creation of the tourism rangers, which was a kind of tourism police, which is similar to what happened in the Bahamas, where you have a set of men and women that you train in tourism from the community, so they can assist and they can help in the preservation of security for the tourists when they are on land. And we also created the tourism hostesses. That was a group of young women from the areas. They were in Soufrière, they were in Castries, that they gave the tourists a welcoming experience, where they met them on the ports and they brought them on guided tours through the city. That was the work of the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Project, all with a view of bringing tourism to the people and creating the philosophical basis for the benefits of tourism to accrue to as many people as possible. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, it was this government, through the NCA, that created these programs, and that started the whole idea of the preservation of our beaches, which led to the development of the beach park at VG opposite the airport, Mr. Speaker. That is a project of the St. Lucia Labour Party government. The project, the building that you see next to the airport, Mr. Speaker, it was built, that was a project of this, and when they opened it, they did not even invite the former Minister of Sustainable Development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Nature Heritage Tourism Project, Mr. Speaker, a soft loan to facilitate the development of eco-tourism roads, the Debara for Debarra, for Turtle watching, Deville, Delce, to La Pointe in Soufre, for the Grosile, the Gopiton Trail, the Labrilette Beach, and the Windjammer Resort. These roads were built, Mr. Speaker, by funds from the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Project, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these created sustainable tourism linkages. And I spoke about the sky rides already and the Hotel Chocolat, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm putting it to you that this government has wasted valuable time in the desire to crash every project started by the Labour Party, in the desire to pretend that the Labour Party did nothing substantial for the tourism industry, in the desire to cause St. Lucians to believe that they have the answer to a tourism industry, which they are not saying to the people of St. Lucia. That worldwide forecasts are saying that the tourism industry is extremely fragile, and we have to proceed with caution. Mr. Speaker, why do you think that the Labour Party would not want St. Lucia's tourism industry to progress and do well? We were the ones who managed the transition into tourism in 1997. And when the then Prime Minister spoke about the transition, the economy in transition, they laughed at him. We were the ones who did it, you know. Because you must understand, up to 1992, we were still exporting bananas. And the slump in banana production, banana exports came between 92 and 97 when we took over the economy. So we are the ones who had to transition it into tourism. So why should we be against the tourism industry? So why come and believe that you can completely dismantle and damage the legacy that the Labour Party created for the tourism industry? Well, we were the ones who managed the transition in the first case, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so this tourism, village tourism concept is just a continuation of the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Program, which this government could have continued with the grant from the EU that they got in 2008. They could have continued it, and all the dreams and the aspirations that they have, because elections are coming, all the sort turnings they will have for jetty in this place and hotel in this. Mr. Speaker, I heard the Prime Minister speak about what's happening in Soufre and in Soufre, as if anyone would be against that. What we are concerned of, and he said, is the environmental impact. That's what that concerns us. So, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party is not anti-development, as they want you to pretend, as they want to pretend that we are. The Labour Party believes in sustainable development because we are all products of St. Lucia. So we believe that our economy and our country should be developed in a sustainable manner, and our patrimony should be protected. So why should we be against a project like the Nature Heritage Tourism Project? What we are against, Mr. Speaker, is the careless manner in which the resources of the country are being used, the wild promises that are being made, the priorities of a government that believes that golf, even the President of the United States, all his golf courses went bankrupt. They did not make any money. The President of the United States. But in St. Lucia, we believe that a golf course will make money. These are the ideas, because somehow in St. Lucia we believe we are geniuses, we are gurus, although the evidence does not show that. But golf courses all over the world are not being profitable, but ours here, for some special reason, will be profitable. So, Mr. Speaker, whereas based on our work with the St. Lucia Heritage Tourism Project, I support the concept of the diversification of our tourism industry. I support it 100%. But I'm saying, because of this government's wasting time and their desire to crush the legacy of the Labour Party, that we have not got more substantial benefits pre-COVID to the sustainability and the development of tourism in the districts of St. Lucia. And they are all to blame. And because elections are near, there are more promises that are going to be made, just because elections are near, Mr. Speaker. But as I came and I stood and they laughed at me, and I warned them, and I said to them, 4 years is not 40 years. I was laughed at, I was ridiculed. But the chickens have come home, and we have realized now that in spite of what we do, in spite of how we hold it back, in spite of how we mention all projects in the world, in spite of what we say, we can say that the world is going to get square. And this country is going to be the only country in the world where nothing will affect us. The fact is that we can run high, we can jump high, we can jump low. It must happen before September next year. It must happen. Unless you intend to do like people who say they lose, they will not accept their defeat. So I'm saying to the government, the village tourism concept is a concept that they wasted time with. They neglected the villages. They neglected, they misused the opportunities that existed for them. And now, because elections are coming, they're going crazy with all kinds of promises, hoping that they can make the people of St. Lucia believe that they have the better plan and they should be elected. So, Mr. Speaker, this is my contribution, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that the people of St. Lucia understand what's happening in this house, that it's going to be a time of promises, and more promises, plus vindictiveness, more vindictiveness, and more victimization. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.